Hi folks, I'm Father Joe Grimaldi. You can call me Joe, and I'd like to welcome you to my podcast. But now, here's our host and friend, Ken Calvert.
Hi everybody, I'm Ken Calvert alongside the good Father Joe Grimaldi, and we would like to welcome you to another edition of the Father Joe Grimaldi podcast. As I have said many times before, both Father Joe Grimaldi and I are proud customers of Star Lincoln, where we got the star treatment. Well, summer is starting to wind down, and it's time to talk a little bit more about two things. Number one, check out the pre-owned vehicles on display right now at Star Lincoln, 12 Mile Road, just east of Southfield, in beautiful Southfield. Hoot McInerney Star Lincoln. And how about the Nautilus? The Nautilus has quickly become Lincoln's most popular SUV. The quickest way to shop Star Lincoln is by going online, starlincoln.com. Shop Star Express. Browse online, reach out when you're ready, then pick up or have your new Star Lincoln delivered right to your front door. Experience the ultimate in luxury with the stunning lineup of Star Lincoln SUVs, starting with the full-size Comfort and Extreme Lincoln Navigator, the 2021 Lincoln Aviator. Visit starlincoln.com. Star Lincoln, home of the star treatment. Closing in on podcast number 300.
God bless you.
300. Seems like only yesterday.
I'm going to tell Zip about this, but go ahead.
Oh, well, Zip is a friend of ours. There was a high school reunion here in town, Brother Rice High School, where Father Joe Grimaldi was principal, not only once, but twice.
Well, teaching, yeah.
Yeah. And taught, that was your first assignment as a young Christian brother.
Correct.
Then known as the Irish Christian Brothers. So there was a reunion this past weekend, and you ran into a bunch of students who...
It's the class of 70.
Yeah, 50th reunion. And everybody had a great time, correct?
Correct. And it's 51 years, actually, because of the pandemic.
Oh.
It was postponed to this year, but it still was the class of 70 that was celebrating.
And you always manage to, somehow, they tug on Superman's cape, meaning you, to vestment up and say a mass. And you enjoy doing that, don't you?
Oh, I do. I had mass for them. What happened was, like so many other reunions throughout the world, what happens is you invite all of these alums. You maybe have a religious service like we did, a mass, and then give them a tour of the school, because it has changed a lot since they were there. And so they get the tour. They also get to see what's going on as far as additions that they never saw before. The library, actually, which is going to be changed once again, they certainly would not have seen what looked like a college library.
Right.
Because nowadays these high school libraries are much more tech-friendly, so the actual books, physical books, may not be in abundance, but there's a lot of information that you can get from the various machines, so that when you walk into the Center for Studies at Brother Rice, you will have the various cubicles where people can do their research. But it's kind of an interesting situation, because it's a change from black to white, if you want, that these students, these young men, well, they're not young men anymore, but these men saw on Saturday night. And so there's a lot of connecting, is that what you call it?
Reminiscing.
Reminiscing.
Especially Brother Rice back in those days have generated so many wonderful memories. For some reason, when you go to an all-boy Catholic high school, and maybe it's different now, I don't know, but those memories seem to stand out more than any of the other memories you have. College was different because of the fact that you didn't see the same people, no matter what, for almost 4 years, recycling in the cafeteria.
Well, as you say, there's a bond that's created that way, way, way into the future. It's interesting now. You said it might be different. It is. It's stronger because they have what they call the Band of Brothers. And the Band of Brothers remain close throughout the 4 years. So it's the same group for 4 years. Now, I forget how many bands there are, but you have the band of brothers. Oh, what they do is they list them according to a saint. And so you might belong to St. Joseph's or to St. Leo, whatever the case might be. And you stay in that group for the 4 years. So you can imagine the bond that's created by that group.
My fondest memories, life-changing events, came from my 4 years at Brother Rice High School. I wanted to deflect away from that for a second because, of course, you say Mass virtually every day. Today is the feast day of St. John Vianney. And it's remarkable how the coincidence of that feast day and your priesthood have all come together and remained together. Re-explain to me how this all came about.
Well, when I was in the seminary and I was in communication with my bishop in Honolulu, he was trying to figure out a date for the ordination, and he asked me, would this Saturday do, would that Friday do, would this Saturday, and so on and so forth. Eventually, he was able, with his schedule, he was able to settle on August 4th, which is the feast of St. John Vianney. That's my ordination day.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. But today is 31 years that I've been a priest. After 31 years as a brother.
I wanted to blindside you and say, sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
31 years.
Yeah, I appreciate
well served, and boy. So continue, please.
But in any case, St. John Vianney has always been special to me, despite the fact that sometimes I never had a close relationship with him. For some reason or other, it's one of these things where, yes, I was ordained on that day. The anniversary is still special to me. He himself, because he's also the patron saint of priests, all priests.
Mm-hmm.
So that becomes the more important thing for him. In any case, what's interesting in my life, my first parish was the parish of St. John Vianney.
That's remarkable.
The date that I took the keys, in quotes, as they say when you enter, was August 4th. St. John Vianney interspersed with so many things in my life that it made it special, there's no question. I don't know, let me say a little bit about St. John Vianney. He didn't die till 1859, I believe it was, and that's, of course, the mid-19th century. As a young man, he wanted to be a priest, but he didn't have the academic ability. And so they kept postponing him, getting him away from the idea and so on. But he was persistent. He wanted to be a priest. There was no question. Eventually, the Diocese of Ars, ARS, which is in France, the southern part of France, eventually they gave in. So they figured he could always be a sacramental priest. What does that mean? A sacramental priest is a priest who says Mass and does not do any administrative types of things. They just didn't think he had the ability. So they made him a sacramental priest. He was there to say Mass, to lead people in devotion, and also to do some counseling. Right away, that brings to mind Detroit and Solanus, okay?
You took the words right out of my mouth.
But anyway, so John Vianney became quite a priest as the curé of Ars. Curé is the French word for the administrative, how should I put it, the pastor's assistant, we used to call it, and this type of thing. Now, what he's famous for is something I could never possibly do. He would spend, in winter, 11 hours a day in confession. In winter was 12 hours a day. In summer, it was 11 hours a day. He would spend those hours just listening and blessing and forgiving and all of these other things. He is very famous for that. I can't do it. I don't know how many priests could possibly do that, but he did it. He was very, very noted for that. Ars is a beautiful little town in France, And obviously he became pretty renowned because of what he did, and therefore, how should I put it, well known throughout the world, particularly since he's been made the patron saint of priests.
Sure. How did his lore travel around the world in the mid-19th century? It's fascinating to me how the popularity of a certain person sort of travels.
Well,
But then again, I will say this as well. People were traveling in the mid-19th century. It wasn't like they had never, moved around and about.
Oh, no, in the 1850s, people
Sure.
were getting around. But the other thing, too, is primarily by word of mouth. I'm always fascinated by, look at St. Paul in the first century as he travels throughout the world in so many ways, Northern Africa and Greece and places like that. And so I don't know how people could do that in the first century, and yet we firmly believe and know that he did do that kind of travel. Well, with St. John Vianney, the word got around. If you want to have your confession heard by a holy man, you have to go to St. John Vianney.
Oh.
And so people went from different countries even to have their confessions heard by him, because they felt in their own minds that they were being surely forgiven. And if they were open and honest with him, they would be truly forgiven. And so they felt really, in quotes, clean coming out of the confessional. So word got around that way.
I did not know that this man dedicated basically half of his life
To confessions, yeah.
to confessions.
Yeah, and what you say does happen, believe it or not.
It does.
It's not, how should I put it? You have to have the right person, because not everyone will follow, not everyone will comply.
Yeah, three
So
Our Fathers, three Hail Marys,
so
don't do it again.
Yeah, and so the priest has to use his judgment. Today it's easier to do that because most people go to confession face to face, and therefore the priest knows the individual. There's nothing better than going to confession with someone you know. In the old days, people were ashamed. He says, I'm not going to do that. Well, let's face it, we're all human beings. If the priest has half a brain,
No.
he's not going to scold people and so on. He's going to guide them. He's going to listen. He's a doctor in many ways who has to heal. He's a lawyer in many ways that has to come up with justice. One of the things we have to do is look at priests as a human being as well with spiritual powers, let me put it this way. And so that when somebody goes to confession, shame should be out of their mind, because what happens is this. The one thing is true, and it's still true today. The priest, under real penance for himself, which means they would take him away his power to hear confessions, cannot ever disclose even a hint of what went on in that confession.
Mm-hmm.
So even if the individual, this sounds strange, even if the individual who went to confession says to the priest after they leave the confession, Father, you know that thing I was talking about? Well, he says, sorry, but you'll have to repeat it. I cannot do that.
I find that fascinating, even more interesting, because I knew that St. John Vianney was the patron saint of priests. I did not know that he dedicated more than half of his life, because he had to sleep at some point.
Right.
So, I guess he gave himself a little bit of a break in the summer. Instead of 12 hours.
It was 11, yeah.
I'm going to do 11. I mentioned to some friends the other day, somehow, some way it came up, confession. You Catholics, do they still do confession? Do you go into that little box? And I said, no, it's face-to-face now. It's face-to-face. You sit down in usually a comfortable chair, and you basically have a discussion with the priest about what's going on. It's more of a counseling meets confession, And they were like, no, come on. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that. I would have to have a barrier. I said, well, I'm sure that they can make arrangements for that.
We always, yes, the one thing we have to do is be compassionate. If a person needs the anonymity, we will provide it. Okay, so the confessionals are no longer confessionals. I mean, they still exist in the old churches, but right now we have confession rooms, if you want. I don't know what else to call them.
Right.
But they're rooms, basically, where a section of the room separates you from the priest completely. So you speak through a screen, and then the other side of the room is the two chairs facing each other. So the person, the penitent, comes in, he or she has a choice of which one they want to go to. But I would say now more than 90% they do face-to-face. It's much more comforting. It's much more... I know in the beginning it sounds strange if you've never done it. People that don't go to confession, they think that's horrible. But I think once you've gone, it makes a lot more sense in the sense that you're able to communicate what your leanings are and how you can change those leanings.
Quick question for you. Do other Christian churches have any form of confession?
Well, I have to say that almost all the other religions have at least counseling.
Oh, yeah.
They don't call it confession. For us, confession is a sacrament. It's one of the sacraments.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So, but no, they don't have it as a sacrament. If somebody wants to speak to Father, they can. In the Orthodox Church, they can.
Okay.
Now, can we ever hear confessions? Well, of the Orthodox, if it's a person is close to death and they want to, there's all sorts of little, possibilities, even with Protestants. It's not the sacrament, but at least you can talk with them. Matter of fact, it's interesting because most of our Catholic schools, the majority are Catholic, but there's a large percentage are non-Catholic students.
Yes.
And when you have, for example, a school mass, and then you have confessions on another day, they want to go too. Well, what we do offer them is the ability to go and speak to the priest in any way they want. But it's not a sacrament, it's not confession, it's basically the person asks for some help in this, that, or the other thing.
Right.
Whereas for the Catholic, of course, it's a sacrament.
Yeah, I think it would be rather unusual to isolate the non-Catholic attendees of a high school. Like, well, you guys, stay back and just sort of,
Well, they used to do that.
I bet. Listen, I'm not surprised by anything anymore.
Neither am I.
Well, I want to say congratulations on 31 years.
Well, thank you.
And may you have. I look forward to your 50th. And I do mean that. I look forward to your 50th.
Funny. Don't be funny.
No, I'm not. I'm being very serious. So on behalf of all of us at the Father Joe podcast industry, and that's just you and I.
I know. I was going to say, where are they all?
Where did our producer go? Oh, he's right here. That's me. Where did our technicians go?
That's me.
That's you.
I mean, you.
Well,
I meant you, but that's okay.
Yeah, but who's the host? Father Joe Grimaldi, celebrating 31 years. And thank you, St. John Vianney, for directing this man's mission in life and for us to be able to allow and celebrate your 31 years.
It's interesting that we're celebrating right in the midst of an uptick in this horrible virus that doesn't ever seem to go away. It seems to multiply, and it seems to divide people even more for some reason or other. Those who want to wear masks, those who don't, those who will and those who won't. So it's a difficult situation that we're in. So we pray during these challenging times. Lord Jesus Christ, our true physician and healer, be merciful to us and bring us your aid in these troubled times. Heal all our sickness mid every affliction of your people. Drive out our infirmities of soul and body. Free us from all disease, and especially from this pestilence. We place in your gentle heart the elderly, the frail, people with disability, children, young people and families, our indigenous peoples, those who are poor, lonely, and isolated. As you walk with us, free them from fear and give them patience and hope together with our loving care. In your mercy, deal also with the causes of our pitiful condition, that in curing our lack of faith and spiritual weakness, you may also remedy the bodily ills. We place our trust in you, the risen Lord, who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen. And God bless you all. This is Father Joe Grimaldi, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Father Joe Podcast.
If you'd like, you can email us. It's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. That's frjoepodcast@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook. Simply search Father Joe Grimaldi. And thanks for listening, everyone.